Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, great scholars and great leaders. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Yes, we do this every week. We do this every Wednesday. These are Super Wednesdays, masterclass. We meet as leaders, as scholars, and we learn a lot from each other. As you know, we come here to learn, to unlearn, to relearn, and to co-learn. It's a community where peers talk to other peers, where we empower each other, where we inspire each other, we encourage each other, we correct each other, we admonish each other. Yes, it's leaders. So we've got to, as peers, and just to meet and sharpen each other. As they say, that is the iron sharpens and iron, so shall leaders empower each other. My name is Mazwe Majola. I'm from the Worldwide Institute of Leadership and Development. We develop leaders, we train leaders, we produce great leaders and scholars, by the way. We've really produced many scholars, whether you want to do your master's degree or your PhD or whatever. Please talk to us. We'll assist you, and then we'll make sure that definitely you do wear that red gown. I mean, if you want to go that route, we've done it. So many colleagues who are in this platform, they can attest to that. That is what we've done. Tonight we are discussing a very interesting and a very important topic. But before I introduce our speaker, let me welcome our members and our regulars. We meet every Wednesdays as those who attend as often as they can. Obviously, we know we are busy, but really the fact that you've made a date that every Wednesday, 6 p.m., you don't touch anything, it means a lot. And you do that because you know the value you get from this platform. Since we started, we've hosted great leaders, and we've unleashed great leaders in our country and obviously global as well. So thank you so much. If you are joining us from South Africa, if you are joining us outside of South Africa, welcome. We know that we've got colleagues who join us, Africa, UK, US, everywhere. So thank you so much, and you are most welcome. But a special welcome to those colleagues who are joining us for the first time. If you are here for the first time, if you've never been with us, we are so welcome, and please do participate. This is a safe space, really, where leaders are just talking to each other with respect. So you don't have to be shy or diffident. Do participate wherever possible. We'd like to learn from you just as much as we'd like to learn from others. There's a very good reason why you've joined us tonight. So thank you so much for making it. Tonight we are discussing human plus AI. And my sister Sane, I'll be introducing her. She really scolded me, and she was so strong that how that plus must be written, or that end actually, that end must be written. My technical guys did a flyer, and they put end like AND and said, no, please, it must plus AI. So she will be, talking to us what is the significance of that, human plus AI or and AI, what really it means, redesigning work for a sustainable future. And this is what we're discussing tonight. It's a super masterclass. We'll be learning a lot from the expert, from the best. My sister, Dr. Sane Ngidi. I've been hunting her for a while now, and I'm so glad that by God's grace, she made it this week. Very, very busy. She's very busy, and I really am grateful that she made it to tonight. Sis Sane is the SIOPSA president. SIOPSA stands for Society for Industrial and Organizational Psychology of South Africa. She will tell us a little bit more about the organization, but also a very well-respected global HR leader. If you are in South Africa, really, you are in that space, and you don't know that brand or that name, Dr. Sane Ngidi. So it means that you still have to to learn more, to dig more in terms of that area, because she's a well-known HR globally. That's why already it's such a wonderful thing that in this platform you're hosting her tonight. Just a little bit about herself. She's got obviously with her credentials, she'll be having a very long CV or profile, but with her humility, she just shortened it and said, Prof, just say these few words or these sentences. So just introduce very, very few. But as I'm saying that, you will search for her if you want to know more. So Dr. Sane Ngidi is the founder of Ngisamila and current president of the Society for Industrial and Organizational Psychologists of South Africa. She's an industrial and organizational psychologist and global HR leader with over 20 years of experience across broadcasting, financial services, consulting, and the development sector. Her PhD in Women in Leadership anchors her commitment to advancing women, particularly Black women, and to building workplaces that are both high-performing and deeply human. That is Dr. Sane Ngidi, ladies and gentlemen. My sister, once again, thank you so much for honoring us. It's a privilege, it's a pleasure, the honor that you made it tonight. You can address us now. And to those who are joining us for the first time, we'll allow the speaker to address us. And then once she has done it, and then we can engage each other and also engage with Q&A. Thank you so much. Over to you, my sister. Over to you, Dr. Ngidi.
Thank you, Prof, for that intro. Good evening, everybody, and welcome. I'm really excited to be here this evening. I really value platforms for collaboration, learning, sharing, and so I'm grateful for the opportunity to be here. From my own career context, I wear the hat of being an industrial and organizational psychologist, but being deeply rooted as an HR professional within corporate. And one of the key topics that's prevalent at the moment is really around this intersection between human or HR practices and technology. And I'm so excited to share more about that today. I did hear in Prof's intro that this is a learning for all of us. And so I'm going to take that from him literally and share my insights, my thoughts, my musings. And I really hope to learn from you as well this evening. I hope to hear case studies of what you are doing, what you are experiencing, and hope that by the end of this evening, we all leave more enriched by having explored this dialogue together. I'm going to share my screen. Prof, you'll let me know once it's visible.
Yes, we can see it, my sister. We can see it. Excellent.
Perfect. You can still see the screen clearly?
Yep. Yes. Yeah, we can see it clearly. Thank you. Yeah.
As Prof said, the human plus AI redesigning work for a sustainable future. Why the plus and not an and? It's a plus because both these things are needed. We need human beings and organizations to remain deeply human. But the plus is, in order to be able to do that, we really have to leverage AI. And so no one of these is bigger than the other. And as we go through the conversation, you'll hear a little bit around some of the opportunities this presents, but also some of the challenges and risks if we don't hold this balance between these two dynamics. I'm really interested in unpacking what this looks like within the world of work, wearing my lens as a work psychologist, and thinking about the position we find ourselves in now, right? Because we stand at a really unique intersection of the abilities that we have to use technology to enable and create a completely new world of work, right? So it's this intersection of humanity and technology, which creates great opportunities, but there's risks to it. There's fears to it. And if there isn't the right governance and structure to it, real threats. And so let's unpack a little bit around augmented intelligence and how we potentially use it to amplify human potential and the human experience, and create more inclusion, as opposed to the opposite of that. And so we have the unique opportunity to intentionally architect and design workplaces where individuals, teams are not just surviving. And sometimes it does feel like we're just surviving, but actively thriving. And it's the shift from looking at artificial intelligence or augmented intelligence as not just taking away routine work, but more than that, designing workplaces where we are looking at well-being, thriving. And so it's not just the automation, but it's about the humanity in that lens. So effectively, the opportunity we have right now is around intentional design. It's around how can we design organizations where human well-being, inclusion, and purpose are at the center. And that's really exciting, but it also comes with great responsibility. I'm sure many of us use AI tools in different formats. I think the most common ones is often things like ChatGPT or, I don't know, ChatGemini. Some individuals have delved into the space of using AI for personal assistance and designing a personalized experience. Many of us hear about it within the space of HR practices and recruitment. And so as you're hearing me speak, this isn't a thing that's down the line. It's here, it's now, it's what we're doing. And so AI is no longer a futuristic concept. It's very much playing in the world of work. The spectrum to which you use it is really where the dialogue is, right? So common places where organizations have got practices in place is around AI screening. We hear a lot around recruitment, massive roles of applicants, using AI tools to smart screen, reducing the work of humans, chatbots around what customer service might be like, and enhancing the customer service experience. A few years back when we were talking around what the skills of the future look like for organizations, and there were the list of what the skills of the future are. One of the core skills of the future was around the cognitive load management. And that speaks to just the vast amount of data and insights we have at our fingertips, which enables us to move from HR functions and practices, which historically reported on the past, right? Reported on how many roles we filled, on how many people we terminated, or all of those things, to saying, can we create predictive analytics? We have enough data now to show trends, and we can make recommendations to organizations, recommendations for learning, recommendations for leadership. There's some really exciting stuff that's happening around workforce planning, which is a challenge for a lot of organizations, around skills mapping. And so the use of these platforms is really prevalent now. And the question is, how well are you and your organization using them? And are you leveraging them to make you effective? This is fundamentally transforming talent practices, right? Leadership development practices, well-being. We have access to information that can fundamentally change how we approach or solution for employees within the workplace. I've mentioned around AI in the recruitment landscape holistically, things like digital coaching and virtual mentoring, things that might have at scale previously been difficult to deploy to large groups of teams or employees. Coaching often kept as something that is used for executives in a limited pool, the ability to use technology, AI, democratizes that and makes it available and accessible to all. It also makes it so that you can use it in different parts of the employee lifecycle and process, right? So coaching is no longer something that you just do perhaps at onboarding or when a role is changing, or when an executive needs it. But how do we use coaching in terms of day-to-day HR practices and use technology to be able to do that? So HR practitioners and the approach to HR itself can be more enhanced. I think a piece that all of us can resonate with, and which is exciting to think about in the world of work as well, is often we have smart technology on our wrists, or whether you've got a ring, or we might be monitoring the data of how people work, tracking metrics of work. But this gives us insights into an aspect of employee well-being, which you can't access just by looking with your eyes, right? So the data gives us this insights, and it says, what are we learning about our employees' well-being, and how can we use that to nudge to create different experiences? And so there's a plethora of different ways in which you can use AI to fundamentally create a unique, differentiated employee experience. And then the third aspect is around the ways of work, so how we work. Pre-COVID, we were all in the office working at home. Now we've swung to a point where some organizations are still within hybrid work. Some places are fully remote. I'm one of those people. I work fully remotely with a global team. And so designing intentionally for different modalities of work. How do you have equity or consistent employee experience in remote or hybrid environments? When your team is a globally dispersed team, what does that look like? How are you able to use tools and technology to, rather than create mistrust, use it intentionally by design for psychological safety? So creating platforms, spaces where individuals can get support and can engage. And so you will hear the constant theme is the by design, right? These tools are accessible, and it's about how you take and intentionally use them and design inclusion into your practices and design the culture that you want and design practices so that it's around well-being. Why that's also important is because we can fall into the trap of using tools and technology just to create efficiencies, but not necessarily think about what is the human experience in that, and what are we trying to create about the human experience. So this is the plus in this equation. If you go out there and you try and think about these various HR practices and what tools that you can use, there are many, from paid platforms to free platforms. And so the field is really yours to kind of choose what technologies that you would like to use. In my own experience, I've gone from organizations where we have custom designed surveys, which are touch points, which draw on an extraordinary amount of data, to using coaching and performance processes, to teaching managers to use ChatGPT or other platforms in performance processes themselves. And so those are both custom platforms as well as those that are off the shelf. So from if I want to do this, what is the solution perspective? There really is a variety out there that's available. One of the places that I really enjoy going to learn what's happening within the human capital space is AIHR, which is the Academy to Innovate HR. They have really great research, insight, models, etc. This is one of theirs around the types of AI tools that are available. Again, I want to caveat that there are many, many, many options out there. This is not this is not to say these are the options that you should use. But I think what's really nice about this is that at a glance, you can see that across the whole human capital value chain, there are many opportunities to use AI technology to really create a differentiated experience. So from recruiting to training and development, to well-being, performance, to the quality of assistance that HR is providing, to your HRIS, to leadership development, the spectrum is wide around what can be used. And I also really like the focus around employee well-being. Often we focus on employee well-being on the EAP, which is an important piece, but on an ongoing basis, what can we be doing in a more predictive space using tools and technology? So the takeaway here is that by integrating science with practice and technology, the opportunity that you have to leverage these tools is to enhance innovation within the human capital space rather than diminishing the employee experience at work. What does this mean from a psychological lens? Well, enter positive organizational psychology 2.0. What does that mean? Well, this view of psychology says that we draw on existing modalities or theories around industrial and organizational psychology. We fuse them or we augment them with intelligent technologies, and this enables us to scale impact, insight, and inclusion. So it's taking theory, knowledge, technology together and creating the differentiated employee experience. So examples of what this might look like, it might look like personalized coaching for individuals or teams using AI. So building the psychological capital, providing that one-on-one support, but using technology. It might look like monitoring from well-being platforms in terms of whether it's tools that you're using, gadgets, or whether you're tracking employee behavior, and being able to use that and say, okay, the nudging piece is around what do we need to do for employees within the space, or giving employees themselves triggers in terms of what they can do for their own well-being. A critical piece is around ethical use of AI, right? If we use it ethically, it can increase inclusion and psychological safety, right? So how are we ensuring that we are designing to remove biases in our practices by using AI? And then the last piece is around opportunities for leadership development, right? So literally putting you in someone else's shoes through simulation, giving you an experience that shows you a lens to develop skills of empathy, ethics, etc., using technology. And so if you listen to these things, they're not a replacement of the human experience. Rather, they are enhancing by using insights and data to create an enhanced experience. They are enhancements, they're intentional design. Governance is a huge piece, an important piece around it, in order to hold that balance of ethics and inclusion. And again, it's guided by industrial and organizational psychologists or work psychologists, right? So it's infusing behavioral science into this. And so it presents us three opportunities. The one is finding real synergies between humans and technology to create differentiated experiences. So how are we leveraging that? The second is the real ask for us as organizations, leaders, to ensure that we're looking after the well-being of employees. And so how are we designing with mental health, well-being, resilience at the heart of what we do? And then the third piece is around designing for the next generation of leadership. We are no longer in a command and control environment where we are looking at people in the eyes in the workplace. Leaders of today are facing multi-generations within the world of work, leading teams that are globally diverse and dispersed, leading diversity, and also the next generation interacts completely differently with technology. And so what does that look like? And so exciting opportunities for the human capital space. And when we take this a step closer to home and we think about, okay, but what lens or what are the things that come up for us when we start to think about this from an Afrocentric lens and thinking about our environment? We bring it closer to home by thinking about South Africa and the global South lens, right? Context matters. In design, it can't just be vanilla off the shelf and implementation. The environment, the context, the history matters. And so in our South African lens, we have to ensure that we're designing for many and not just a few. And that talks to biases and what biases might sit within a system, right? If artificial intelligence is learning from patterns of the past, there is inherent bias in the past. And there's inherent prejudice in the past. So how do we make sure that we are solving for that? How do we make sure that there's inclusion in everything that we do, and how are we mitigating for biases? So if we're using tools to screen, what are they screening for? And are they screening me out? Or are we making sure that we're cognizant that the tools might screen me out, and therefore we're solving for a diversity in our screening processes? That's just one example of where we use AI to make sure that it's mitigating biases and ensuring there's inclusion. South African context is diversity in terms of economic status, in terms of social context. And this creates both opportunities and challenges. Opportunities to use AI as an equalizer, to create access, but also realizing that, I mean, if the ticket to the game is access and there isn't access, that's a difficult starting point. So really being cognizant about that. And I'll use a simple example for that. Pre-COVID, we all came to the office and everything was equal. Everybody got a laptop, everybody got whatever they needed to work. When during COVID, we had to go and work in our different contexts, that's where you then see inequality, right? Who has access to Wi-Fi, who's got access to places where they can work. And so we live in a context where digital transformation across the global South is uneven, access is uneven, and therefore it demands that we design solutions that are inclusive and contextually relevant. This also means if you're working in a global context and you're delivering something that is an employee experience, you've got to think about what that means for different markets and different contexts. And so key considerations include, what is the digital divide? What does that look like? What does access mean? What does affordability mean? And as much as we design for effective work and for thriving workplaces, a core component and need is around the demand for scale and cost-effective mechanisms and solutions for mental health and development for our employees. This all sounds great, but we all know that there is a public narrative about AI that's dominated by fear. That is not just looking at the rosy parts of it, but thinking about what are the possible negative consequences? How is AI impacting our climate? How is it impacting the planet? What does this mean in terms of fake news and the information I'm getting? When I look and access information, is it real? Is it true? Is it authentic? Is it factual? Can I trust it? What does it mean for my job? Will I still have a job? Will technology take my job? Who benefits from this? And what are the impacts for myself? The piece around ethics and bias and discrimination, how is that solved for? If our past is full of bias, are we just replicating that bias on a global scale or larger scale over and over and over again? Will there be any new, novel, creative ideas of technologies just learning and replicating that? Can we really trust technology? And if I'm putting my information in there, where is it going and what does that mean? And I guess the big one is, are we going to lose control to technology? Fundamentally, are we going to reach a point where technology is in charge? And then from a human perspective, what happens to our ability to think cognitively? Are we giving that away and getting lazy in our thinking by using technology? And so all of these are real challenges and real considerations and real risks for us. And this is why a critical component is around, if there is deployment and use of tools and technology and AI without human-centered design, without ethical governance, AI can amplify fear, it can amplify inequality, it can amplify harm. And so if the ethical governance is a critical piece. And those words are both important. It's not just governance, it's about ethical governance and how we use it. And so this moves us from a place of fear to strategy. So how do we move from these are the risks that we have to what do we put in place to mitigate them, what governance structures, and what's our strategy as we move forward? Grounding us in that, what are we seeing in research, right? Like, what are the key research trends that are coming out? So what we're seeing in research is that I think as a baseline setter, AI really has the ability to reduce administrative tasks, eliminate those, create real efficiencies in the ways of work. In some ways, reduce cognitive overload because you're able to use technology to help you with that. And it takes away the non-work and leaves individuals, managers, employees with space and time to focus on judgment, ethics, people, the human components. However, used poorly, it can amplify bias, it can amplify the feeling of surveillance, and it can accelerate burnout when there's too much coming at individuals, too much work, too much crossing of boundaries. And so this balance is needed. Research is telling us a little bit about that. It says 40% of global jobs will be impacted by AI. Now, the word is impacted. Why that's important is that individuals often think that it means my job is gone. Well, it might reshape what the work looks like, right? So parts of the task might be gone, the work might be completely different, but there will be impact to how we work. 85% of jobs in 2030 don't exist yet. Isn't that like just mind-boggling to think what will work look like in the future, right? And I think the important part is that as we automate, as we create efficiencies, the human skills continue to be necessary. Things like creativity, ingenuity, critical thinking, those are very humane characteristics which are still required. You can have a technology platform, but if you don't know what to do with it, then that's lost, right? And that's the human piece that comes through to it. There's this dichotomy also, right? 69% want AI help, but 60% fear for their job losses. So I want to use this thing, but will that make me redundant? And then the trust factor. 35 to 40% trust AI to make fair decisions. That's not a high percentage, right? Well, the other side is higher, rather, which means that still individuals trust humans more than they trust the algorithm, more than they trust AI. And that's the role of humans. The fifth trend from research is this real risk factor that AI could widen global inequality in that rich nations benefit and poorer nations risk falling behind. So this issue of access on a global scale. And so looking at all of this, what becomes critical is this notion around design. The way we design, govern, and adopt AI will shape the future of humanity, and that's what talks to real sustainability. So, the AI question of our time here today is how do we build intelligent systems, so using the AI, that serve all, which is about inclusion and that context, understanding, and relevance, and not just the privileged few. The thing here is that there needs to be ethical deployment of AI. It needs to be culturally resonant, and it needs to prioritize inclusion. In order for that to happen within workplaces, within organizations, when we are implementing solutions, when we are thinking about future strategies and design, it can't be in isolation. We've got to think systemically. And in order to be able to do that, that requires real collaboration. And here is the triad, right? The relationship that ensures that the design is human-centric. So what does that triad look like? Well, the first is around bringing work psychology into the organization. So we're designing with behavioral science in mind, and that's bringing the scientific knowledge, expertise, putting the human at the center. The second pillar is around HR expertise, which is around translating strategy into people-centered practices. So when the rubber hits the road, what does that actually look like in design? And then the third piece is leadership broadly. This is leadership in terms of organizational leadership and strategy. This is leadership in terms of technology. This is leadership in terms of innovation. And so when we think of the role that leadership plays around vision, resources, cultural direction, tools, implementation, this is the triad that is needed to work together to design what the ultimate solution is. And roles change through the design process. So that's just the beginning. That's just the thought around what this partnership looks like of human plus technology and how it plays out in the world of work. When we speak about that piece around practice and what that looks like, there's a lot more to come. There's a lot of research within the space. There's a lot of professionals who are able to share their expertise in this. And so I'm going to talk to you a little bit more around SIOPSA. The first piece is around, we have our SIOPSA conference in July. And this is why I'm really, really passionate about this topic. The theme for the conference itself is Human plus AI, designing positive organizations. I'm sorry about that. Designing positive organizations through augmented intelligence, inclusion, and well-being. And the conference is going to be, first, there's a full-day workshop. And that really is around a technical knowledge and learning and expertise. Then there's 2 days, which is hybrid to enable for global engagement. And then there's 2.5 days, which is face-to-face at the CSIR in Pretoria. What will be covered there is thought leaders, academics researching in this space, students researching in this place will have the opportunity to come and share case studies, research, panel discussions, master classes, so that you can actually learn the tools and skills that are needed. So there'll be thought leadership, practical tools, and also the ability to really engage in what's happening in policy and influence that. The work will span across employee well-being, digital transformation, and also authentic leadership, as well as human-centered technology. Why I think this is important is because work psychologists are the strategic architects of human potential. IOPs are at the right place to lead this work, shaping how people, organizations, and technology co-evolve for a sustainable, inclusive future. That work that I spoke about will be discussed across several streams. The streams themselves speak to the areas of AI. So there's 6 in total. The first is around AI augmented positive workplaces. So how do you use AI for employee engagement, feedback, well-being, thinking around performance, employee experience. The second pillar is around digital empathy and psychological safety. So how are you building trust, connection within the workplace using digital tools and case studies and real examples of that? The third is around the hybrid human experience. So designing meaningful experiences, no matter where people are, thinking about equity, location, workspaces, and really the end-to-end employee experience, location agnostic. The fourth, a critical pillar, is around ethics, bias, and AI governance. So really addressing the risks through policy, practice, decision-making. How do you put governance in place? What does that look like? How do you partner with compliance? The fifth, around lifelong learning and leveraging AI for leadership development and org-wide development. So preparing, what are the digital dexterity, the tools, the skills needed for individuals to work in AI-enabled organizations? What do those skills look like and how do you build them? Then the final pillar is around the intentional design, data design and culture. How are you using data, AI tools to do that piece around intentional design through people analytics, culture, inclusion, employee practices, empowerment, all of that stuff. So that's about the conference itself. As Prof mentioned at the beginning, I wear 2 hats. The one is an HR leader in a not-for-profit organization, Imagine Worldwide, where I lead the HR function. The second is I'm president of SIOPSA. And that's the hat I'm wearing today. And SIOPSA is a member-based organization which is focused on workplace psychology. And so it's a space for IOPs, or industrial and organizational psychologists, or HR professionals or leaders, or any individual who is interested around behavior in the world of work. And you have the opportunity to engage on what is the latest research, what is being published, access to continuous professional development. We have an academy that we are building. We also do a lot of work around partnering with institutions for internships and creating organizational and work experiences for IOPs. We're establishing a foundation, and we do work around community development, uplifting, and coaching of, we coach teachers within our communities through the foundation. We coach students. And so we basically use the skills of industrial and organizational psychology to give back into communities. So working outside of organizations, but working with communities to uplift them. And ultimately, being a part of SIOPSA is focused around 4 pillars, which is around professional growth and development, and making sure that you are at your peak, knowing what the best research is, what is happening in practice. The second is around community and networking, and making sure that you are getting exposure to practitioners within the field. We have regional portfolios and have face-to-face events. A big piece is for emerging industrial and organizational psychologists, and we do a lot of career counseling and coaching. And then the last piece is around professional recognition. So we create platforms where we share who thought leaders are within the space. We also have recognition awards. Another piece is really around very cognizant that IO psychology operates within the world of work. And so we have partnerships as well with other platforms or other membership bodies to create opportunities, often where there are individuals who are HR generalists or coaching practice or in change management. And so we really partner with other institutions to give access. And finally, if you want to find out more about us, please do connect with SIOPSA. Here's the info@siopsa.org.za. We're on all the social media platforms and would love to hear more. I guess my final piece is one of the governance pieces around the age of AI we find ourselves in is my declaration that I definitely used some AI in creation of our content today, and I use it every day. I think I'm very much in a space of using it as an augmented piece for effectiveness, efficiency, and I'm excited about the opportunities it presents. Thank you.
Wow, perfect. Thank you very much, Dr. Ngidi. Thanks a lot. Ladies and gentlemen, if you may want to appreciate Dr. Ngidi, there's some reactions there. You can get an icon that you can press there just to show some appreciation. Yes, let's do that. Let's do that. Wonderful, wonderful. We've learned a lot about this AI thing. It's very important, as you can see. Now, okay, it's the time now to engage the speaker and also just to check, to discuss. Today, I'm not going to waste any time because I see that you really want to get in there. I see, was that Obet, or maybe, or you touched the wrong or wrong button there. Obet was wanted to touch the reaction and you touched their hand. Or do you want to ask a question?
I do want to say, if anybody's got examples of where you're using AI, I would love to hear about it. So please also do share.
Yes, absolutely. If you do use HR already and it's working for you, the certain tool, or please do share. Absolutely, we'd like to know. And thanks, Dr. Ngidi, for really being upfront that the powerful presentation that you've made. You did use the AI, which
I use it every
really
day, everywhere. So.
wonderful. Yes, yeah. So it's really working. Someone who is a professional, Dr. Ngidi, who is a professional and who is not using AI at all in this juncture, what would be your advice to that person?
Start today. I think that was the quote from AIHR, which basically said that you've got a tool at your disposal which can help you be more effective, right? It can help shorten your task. It can help. There is so much information that is out there. It can help you distill it so that you can apply your mind to use it effectively. And so if you're not using AI personally, there's a missed opportunity. And then I think around efficiencies within the world of work, around enhanced employee experience, around higher touch where you can't be, there's opportunity there. I think the big piece is around knowing how to use it. That's a critical piece. The knowing how to use it, the knowing what a closed platform is, the knowing what information you can put in, and that if you put information out there and it's not a private platform, that it's out there for the universe. So maybe let me caveat, use it, but use it responsibly. Know how to use it. These two things need to work together.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you very much. I see the hands now and some comments. Let's start with my sister there, Pumelele. Over to you, Pumelele. Do share with us if you're using any AI and what kind of AI is Pumelele. But go ahead, my sister.
Okay, thanks, Prof. Thanks to you too, Dr. Sane Ngidi. That was an impactful presentation. I do use AI. I use ChatGPT, but not every day like you. and I had started sooner because it's really, really convenient. And I've really gained a lot of value since the start of my ChatGPT usage. But just a few concerns with regards to AI. We found 3 powerful auditing firms where they were found wanting for cheating. And you know, PwC, Deloitte, and EY were given a heavy fine of about $8 million last year by US regulators for widespread cheating in internal training of exams by both partners and staff. So that's concerning. And yet just trying to bring it home, another concern is an article that I read, I think last week on News 24. I think the heading was degrees of dishonesty about UNISA's students, increase of their use in AI, resulting in plagiarism, et cetera, et cetera. So where does one draw the line from an ethical perspective and a corporate governance perspective in the corporate world outside of schooling? And I think what is a real conundrum for me is the fact that people like me who are, you know, creative somewhat, I like writing and having my own content. Some data shows that reliance on some of these AI detectors are not always accurate. Sometimes they falsely flag human work plagiarism. Even when the work is authentically yours, it can be flagged as plagiarism. So it really is a conundrum. How does one protect themselves from being found wanting by these AI detectors? And also, how do we curb using AI the wrong way, AE cheating, copying, etc., from an institution of higher learning perspective, as well as from, you know, the examples that I gave earlier about the 3 auditing firms where both staff and partners were cheating when they were training for exams. Thanks.
That's a great question, and that's very real. And I think it's something we're grappling with, right? And I think that's why the importance of governance is that it's not just governance, but it's about ethical governance, because that addresses the piece around the cheating. some real examples that you use. I mean, in the earlier days when we were seeing more uptick or use of AI, we would see news headlines of somebody uploaded HR salaries into an AI platform, and now those are accessible to everybody. You touched on a really critical component around what does this mean in academia. I lecture part-time, and that's a very real thing. And I think we're moving on a spectrum where AI was a complete no-no to accepting that AI is a reality and saying, how do we ethically use AI? So what that might look like is, like at the end of my presentation, I disclosed that I used AI. And so institutions of higher learning asking students to disclose that they've used AI, and being able to show what did you use AI for, right? So the being transparent as opposed to saying something is your own new or novel work. You also touched on a really important piece. Just because it's AI, it doesn't make it accurate, right? If you put something into ChatGPT and you ask ChatGPT for a quote, it'll give you a quote for days. When you ask it, where did that quote come from? It'll say, I made up the quote because you asked for it. And there's research in the psychometric space where you complete assessments, there are fields missing in the assessment tool itself, it will still produce a result and they'll still give you a candidate. Or in talent management practices where AI is using big data, where it might use tenure, climate survey information, performance information. And if you, Pumelele, didn't have a piece of data, it would say you're not suitable. It doesn't say that you didn't have the data. It says you're not suitable, so it screens you out. So those are very real things. And I think the big piece here is around ethics. If we don't have ethics as the guiding, and around disclosures and around how do we design for that, we will get into a place where there isn't appropriate use of AI tools. And then I think the other part is really about training and giving people skills and the tools to be able to use the tools appropriately. Some tools you just set out into the universe, and you might ask an organization, do you use AI tools? An organization might say, no, we don't have any AI tools that you use. But if you've got employees, those employees are using AI tools and you can't control that. And you don't know what AI tools they're using with your information in the world of work. And so it's got to be, what are the risks? How do we mitigate them? Giving people the tools and capabilities. And then I still think the big question across the board around AI that you've raised is real, which is the ethical conundrum and dilemma. And as AI use continues, how much control we have, and how we manage ethics and risks. So I think it's very real. One final piece, Pumelele, you spoke about your own original writing. I was actually having a conversation with a colleague, and there was a student who submitted a thesis, and they were told that their thesis was plagiarism because it used AI. The students said that they didn't use AI, and they used AI to prove that the work was their own novel thought itself. So that dilemma is very real around what is your own real original thought. And then doesn't matter what the research says, you will get lazy if you're not using your own thinking, right? AI is not the silver bullet. And so you need to continue thinking. It's supposed to aid you.
Thanks very much, Dr. Ngidi. Thanks, Prof.
Thank you. Thank you, Sis Pumelele. Let me take Dr. Mangisa there, and then we'll go to the chat room there and see some of the questions and comments. Dr. Mangisa, over to you, my brother.
No, thanks, Prof. And thank you to Dr. Ngidi for impacting masterclass, impacting presentation that you have rendered, before us. Indeed, AI has brought advantages and disadvantages, whether in academia or in work context. It is a conundrum that we are continuing to face, and perhaps it's going to be part of us, going forward. I am covered a bit, in your response, to the previous, audience. I remember at some point in time, Prof. Majola, we had Dr. Alan Busak, who was critical, of AI, such that he was alluding to the fact that it removes, critical thinking, from, people who are solely, relying on AI information without critiquing, that which, they get or obtain from AI. I remember at some point in time, that he read, somewhere, where his book was even misquoted, by somebody who had mined, information from, using, the AI tools. So at least we are answered, we have a know-how to the effect that if we are not contextualizing, that which we are mining from the AI repositories, is going to be dangerous, to us as leaders, as scholars and so forth and so forth. The question that I have, for you, Dr. Ngidi, from your experience as a global, HR scholar leader, you would give a task, to an HR practitioner to do 1, 2, 3, 4, for you. And this person, whether from a luxury point of view or wanted to impress, from an efficiency point of view, he gives you or she gives you, this data, which is not contextualized. How have you addressed, if you have come across with something like that, how have you addressed it? Or in fact, if you managed to pick it, identify it, how did you identify it? Because I think these are some of the dangers, that we face in the world of work, where, people will just give you as your leader, their leader, give you this information, without even it being contextualized to the project at hand. And thank you so much, Prof.
Thank you so much. First of all, I think there's two lenses I wear to that. The first one is there are some things where I would expect them to use technology, right? There's some places where I'm like, go and do research on this. What does it look like? How can we use it? And so I want them to use technology. Then the second piece is what you are talking to, which is when it comes back as an answer, I don't just want a dump of information. I want to know how is it relevant to our context and our environment. And that's the piece where we still need creativity, ingenuity, and our own thinking. I haven't had examples where it's been to the point where the individual hasn't applied it at all, but I would definitely address it in terms of the tools are there, but anybody can use the tools. It's about how you apply it. I'll give you an example in my own universe. Often when I engage with leaders or clients or stakeholders, they'll be like, Sane, can you come do this within my team? I found this really great leadership assessment tool. I've done some research on it and we should really do that. And then I take a step back and I'm like, okay, but in context, is that really the thing we should be doing? And that's where my knowledge and my expertise supersedes the fact that any manager, any individual can just go onto Google and think or read up on HR and say, let's apply HR practices. So I think that's a real challenge and will continue to happen. But I think that's the differentiator between work that you can just automate and work that needs thinking, ingenuity, and the human, and being able to differentiate the two. And I think that talks a little bit to there was a comment in the question around using AI for culture, et cetera, et cetera. And it's about using AI to reduce the work that doesn't need thinking and doesn't need the human, so that the human can focus on the work that needs the thinking, that needs the creativity. So achieving that balance.
Thank you very much, Doc. Thank you. I see a hand there from Dr. Sponsor Dlamini, but let's just get some chat room. I'll come to you there, Dr. Dlamini. Some of the chats, Dr. Ngidi said it, so it was me there.
So the one I wanted to touch on is from Sfiso, which is how can organizations deal with AI-driven job displacement? That's a tough one, right? Because I think there's two types of job displacement. I think the one is, which we are hoping a lot of a chunk of it will be, which is around, it's not eliminating roles, it's changing roles. So what you do will be different because the work will have changed. So the one is to say, if that work is going away, being automated, AI is taking that, what does the human then do? Or what other work can they do? And what does that look like? So I think that's the one piece around the job displacement. But I think the second piece, and we can already see it, you see the articles that come out in newsletters to say Amazon is eliminating X number of roles, or whatever organization are eliminating roles, that there will be real impacts. And I think that then goes into, what do future jobs look like? So I think there's a piece where it's about how are we then taking the humans and the roles and saying, what do they do in the absence of those pieces? And then there's a piece around, okay, what do we really do about job losses? So I think there's a component of both.
Thank you. Thanks, Docs. My sister there, Brenda Talazo, well done for insightful presentation, Dr. Ngidi. Thanks, Brenda. Dr. Makalima, in fact, I've just created a coaching platform for low-touch coaching with my clients. Also, Dr. Makalima, I use it everywhere with everything. I have even created apps and agents that help my work as a coach in partnership with my clients. I contract and exercise judgments as to particularly the securities. Thank you. That's Dr. Sane there. And then Dr. Mike Masiapato. Good evening, Dr. Ngidi. How do you deploy AI to build an integrated organization? I don't know if that's the one you're answering, but let me continue. Having integrated various personnel from various government structures into an integrated single organization, including the advancement of the well-being personnel dispersed into various working platforms. Let me just read everything, Dr. Ngidi. My professor there, Professor Zide. Wow, what an incredible, inspiring presentation, Dr. Ngidi. We have learned a lot about SIAPSA and AI. This is really motivational. There is a lot of discussion currently about AI, and I was initially skeptical, but I'm now converted. What is the interface between organizational psychology and the neuro-linguistic science, particularly with respect to coaching and learning? So that's the second question there. So, good evening, Dr. Ngidi. How can organizations deal with AI-driven job displacement? And the third question, Sis Brenda, I use AI every day, particularly on workday, to drive decision and have insights to gauge employee engagement in real time. My brother there, Victor Songelwa. Thank you, Dr. Ngidi, for this informative educational presentation. Thank you, Prof. Majola, for always bringing the best. I use AI mode when searching for information on Google, and I find helpful indeed. Thanks, colleagues. That I think about 3 questions there, Dr. Ngidi. If maybe you can tackle them, and then I'll go back and take Dr. Sibons Dlamini. Over to you.
Thank you so much. Dr. Mike there on the question around using AI to build integrated organizational culture. I think that's a huge challenge on its own. I think the starting pieces is understanding what culture you want to bring. It seems as if you've integrated various structures together. So first of all, defining in this new universe, what kind of culture you want to build, what differentiates you, what is it about working there that defines what the culture is. And then I think there's various ways you could use AI tools. You could use it as initial dipstick measures to understand employee sentiment, and use a shared platform so that you can get a shared experience. You could use it as dipstick measures on a more frequent or regular basis. I'm looking at doing this particularly in our team at the moment, which is not just doing the sentiment or employee survey once a year, but because we're in a period of change, having more regular touch points to kind of understand how the employee experience is evolving. You could use it to share or use consistent tools or shared tools for employee experience, whether it's how employees engage with talent practices, performance, well-being, culture experience. You could leverage AI tools to be able to do that. So I think your starting point is, what culture are we trying to drive? Why is that our differentiator? And from that, you can say, okay, what kind of tools do we use and why do we use those tools? I think I'll give one final example. I'm in a Google environment, and so there's a piece around consistent learning. And that's interesting within itself, because how we engage is inherently platform based. And so it already in a learning environment. So yeah, I think your culture determines how you move forward and what platforms you use. And Ndondomzi, on the question around organizational psychology and neuro-linguistic science, particularly with respect to coaching and learning, I think there is opportunity for interface. If I think about organizational psychology holistically, it's about looking at the world of work and humans within the world of work. And so even if I take a step back and I look at PsyOpsa holistically, it is looking at industrial and organizational psychology broadly, but some of the pillars that sit within us as areas of focus are coaching, psychometrics, neuroleadership. There's pieces around mental health, diversity, and inclusion. And so I think if we take it to the practice perspective, it would say, how does that interface with governance, structure, design? What are the pieces of neurolinguistic science which can work together with that? So I'm happy to explore that further and also integrate you or introduce you to other members of the team that can share more insights into that. But I think there's definitely opportunities for it. And then, as I mentioned earlier on, learning is an underpinning of everything that we do through PsyOpsa. I think there was a third question. Did I miss it?
Yes, there was a third question. I can't remember. It was from who now, but probably have touched it. I can't remember. But yeah, probably let's go to my brother, Dr. Siboniso Dlamini. Over to you, sir.
Can you hear me, Prof?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Thank you so much, Prof. Majola, for such an insightful planning and organizing of such an intellectual talk. To Dr. Ngidi, you have explored and touched on many things. And by the way, happy belated, Prof. Majola. Happy belated birthday. Dr. Ngidi, I've got an observation here, and on my observation, I wish to be convinced otherwise, or perhaps given the reality state of the country. And I think Dr. Sborch Brightness, he's the former HOD in Nelson Mandela University, will also assist as a labor unionist. So on the first point, you touched, by the way, on one of your points, you touched the future of work, that 85% of the jobs in 2030 will not be existing. So that typically or practically says we have got a 5-year deadline, given that opinion or observation. So how are we in a country where unemployment rate is too high, do we find ourselves in this kind of situation? Also, I think that the Minister of Finance delivered the budget speech. And how was your observations in terms of the investment in this kind of field, in as much as it's overtaking many jobs in the current state of our labor sector? And how has been your interactions with labor unions in terms of artificial intelligence when it comes into the workplace? Because as you have stated, there is uneven and inclusion issues, accessibility and affordability. And I'll just make an example. Meanwhile, you were giving the address. I was listening to you through my laptop, but due to network issues, I had to switch to my smartphone simply because the network outreach and the bandwidth was not suitable to the laptop. So it had to be then switched to the phone. So in conclusion, what is your experiences in engaging labor unions and as an expected and the sector you are in, and how has your organization championed policy influence as one of the factors of the conference that is going to come through? And in closure, what are the threats and opportunities that we find ourselves? And in my final statement, how do you view the appetite of the public sector, given the current structure of the government we are, obviously the GNU, and what successes have we done, and what opportunities maybe we are not aware that is going to be unlocking this artificial intelligence? So simply just to remind you, my opening remarks were on the 85% jobs that will not be in 2030 and how I then channel it down. So I just wanted to hear your views. What is the appetite that you have digested from government and as well as from our decision-making state powers? Thank you.
Thank you, Siboni. So that's a very real question. And I think it goes to one of the questions that was also in the chat, which is how can organizations deal with AI-driven job displacement, where I spoke about the first piece is around how does the work change and what do you do with that? And then the second piece is the real piece around job losses. So the first piece I will clarify up front is that my engagement is not with unions from that perspective. My engagement is more around skills of what workplaces require, and our engagement is more with the Health Professions Council around what does the workplace look like in that structure. So perhaps from a governance perspective and from defining policy and practice, it's around what are the organizational practices that need to be put in place. You do touch on something that's very real, right? And it goes to my slide around access as the barrier, right? And I mentioned that when we were all in the workplace, everything was equal. When people went to work from home, the reality hit that like some people are in places where there is no data, there is no Wi-Fi, and it creates a bigger gap and inequality. And so the question is, are we able to use tools and give access so that they are not creating bigger gaps? From a government and infrastructure perspective, there have been efforts to make sure that in informal settlements, in environments where previously there wasn't access to Wi-Fi, etc., it's important. But that's one of the tickets to the game. I think if you're in a context or an environment where there is no access to technology at all, that's one of the first places where we should be addressing infrastructure, right? Because I think organizations, when you get into practice, put in place things like what are policies to give individuals allowances, etc. But if you're in an environment where there is no access to Wi-Fi, you can't even enter the game. So I would say from an infrastructure perspective, that work, it's important that it continues. The stat around the 85% said that the jobs of 2030 don't exist yet, which means that there will be work, but it will look different to what work looks like today. And that's where the conversation needs to sit around what skills are required and how do we build and develop those skills between today and 2030. And that's the work we should be doing in organizations. We should be saying, if work at the moment is routine and automated, what work will individuals need to do in the future? And how do we start to build those skills and capabilities? And I think those are the questions that we should be asking. And then I think another critical piece is, and in our current context, and also as work continues to change, is what different skills are we giving to individuals? I think our current context at the moment is we have individuals who leave schooling and our pass rate is what it is. Individuals who then might be afforded the opportunity to study, leave university either with a bachelor's, an honors, or a master's degree. They enter a saturated job market and are unable to find employment. And there's just not enough jobs. So I think the other question is around how are we creating external skills, entrepreneurial skills, and some of the things or examples is around using tools and technology for informal work, and what does that look like? And so how do we start to think about, and this is the ability for AI to democratize what previously was not accessible. So if I have a phone and now I'm able to work and to do things and to have a skill, sell something, do something, whereas previously I had to be in an organization to do that. How are we building those skills at a wider scale? So no, I'm not in the position to guide around the union engagement piece, but certainly around the piece of skills development. How do we build the gap for future skills? And then from an infrastructure and a government perspective, how are we ensuring that the infrastructure exists? And then how are we asking organizations to do more than just looking inside their own organizations, right? And this is part of the wider programs. So what are you doing for skills development, not just in your little universe, but outside of what your universe looks like? And then this is often the hard question for organizations, right? When you invest in talent, when you invest in programs, it's not just about developing for what your need is now, it's about developing for what the wider need is. And that's the space that all of us should be playing in, not just doing development for what our own organization needs, but for what our society needs. So you had to come with the tough questions, huh?
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Sane. May I please ask you to give us your parting shots or your closing remarks? And I'll ask, I hope my professor is still here, Prof. Zide, after you, just to thank you, and then we can close the session. Over to you, sis.
Yeah, my parting words are that the interface of human plus technology or plus AI is really exciting, but it comes with risks. And that's where ethical governance is everything. And if the design is not intentional, then we would have significantly missed a trick. And so as excited as we are, we must make sure we have ethical structures in place and that we're intentional about how we use, deploy, design what the future of work looks like. And then if us as humans are to continue to remain relevant, the thing that AI cannot do is ingenuity, creativity, cognitive thinking. That belongs to us, and we must make sure that we don't lose that. And so even as you use AI, think think as you use it. It's supposed to be a tool to enhance. It doesn't replace your own thinking.
Wow, thank you. Thank you very much. My professor, over to you, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much, my professor, and good evening, colleagues and everybody. Wow, Sane, what a thought-provoking presentation. I think by the nature of the questions and comments made, you would realize that your presentation was indeed a wow. But having said that, I think, Sane, you have really outdone yourself by demystifying the very concept of artificial intelligence. You know, as I said in my comment, I was one of the skeptics about job losses and what artificial intelligence is going to do to us, etc., etc. But the manner in which you explained it, and that even in the midst of AI, creativity and ingenuity will still be part of us as human beings. I think for me, that soothes whatever would be facing us in the future. And currently there is an advert that is going on about a 28-day short course on artificial intelligence. I was very skeptical, but having listened to you, as I said, I'm now converted, and I think I will go for it because of the benefits which really lie ahead. Because whether we like it or not, I think the best part of our education system is that we are prepared for employment rather than for being employers. And your presentation clearly suggests that for us to be creative, we have to think ahead. And thinking ahead is indeed to prepare ourselves for the future. And so I really want to, on behalf of Professor Majola and on behalf of Worldwide Institute of Leadership and Development, say thank you very much, Sane, for a very exciting, instructive, and inspiring motivational presentation. I think there's a sense in which we really need to say to Prof. Majola, time constraints has been a limiting factor. And as we starting the year, there will be an opportunity once again, once I'm done with my AI certificate, to call you back and say to you, well, through your own motivation, I have done it. This is where we are. And so thank you ever so much, Dr. Ngidi, for a very thought-provoking presentation. And thank you very much, my professor. Over to you again. Thank you.
Thank you so much, my professor. Thank you. I share your sentiments indeed. I know that Dr. Ngidi is a very busy person, but we'll try our luck again to bring him back, because I think as professionals, we take this very for granted. It's very, very important to understand and appreciate this coexistence and partnership between human and AI. And mostly because we think a lot, we are intellectuals, we tend to be the one behind everything because of this, what is it called, paralysis analysis. So this was very important just to really, to motivate us to say, let's not find ourselves behind. The train is moving with this coexistence. So my sister Ngidi, thank you so much. Siswam, thanks a lot. As my professor said, it's very, very impactful, very thought-provoking presentation. We've learned a lot from you tonight, and we are looking forward to get you back, God willing, sometimes next coming few months or whatever, but we'll engage with you. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. The session is adjourned now. Until next week, Wednesday, those who joined us for the first time, please do remember, if you're available, we meet every Wednesdays. Next week, Wednesday, we'll be here with another great speaker, with another great topic. We always learn when we are here. There's never a time we attend this platform and we don't learn something. So please do attend, or please join us next week as well. The session is adjourned now. May God bless you. Kosisigalela Africa. Thank you so much. May God bless Africa. Thank you. We meet again next week. Bye. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.